not your problem, but that is our problem, because it is not you who buy the notebooks. It's someone else who buys the notebooks.
Mr. Witness, we are talking about, anyway, I think I leave it to court to assess. Now I want to refer you to tab 19, defense tab 19. Are you there?
Yes.
Yes, I want you to go to paragraph 11.
Perhaps the ERN.
Oh, sorry, and that was one. The ERN is, the ERN is UGA OTP 0242 0 220. So actually the ERN number is 219. 219. Yes. Are you there? And I would want to read this part. Worst of all, when he is alone in the office, he tears some documents from the files. We actually don't know whether documents which are put in record in the file become useless when the in charge of the office is either transferred or is out on duty. I request that you follow up this issue secretly using your means to find out the truth. Otherwise, in conclusion, we at the station are committed to working together as a team so that we achieve the goal. But only him and in bracket, your name is mentioned, who frustrates our efforts. This was a communication that was intercepted from, yes, it's a letter. This communication was a letter which was written by the gentleman that I referred you to, number 9. Have you seen that?
I've seen the writing.
An pa ng'eyo kama wuon nuo choche ye.
I do not know where you got this piece of document. If there was a complaint against me, I should have been summoned within the 4th Division so that I am asked question on this. But I can say that any person is able to write such a thing, because I don't know who wrote this. Perhaps there's a way you found this thing illegally, so as you could come and challenge me here in the court to portray me as a criminal. You know where you got this document.
So for the up team's time, I have to interrupt, unfortunately. Again, this has not been investigated and brought up by Defense Counsel. This was, if I recall it correctly, already part of the examination of the prosecution, and it was put to the other witness. So, and you understand, since we are talking about intercepts, about quality of interception, about interception process and communication, it is of interest for the court to know if there were different persons doing such a job when something like that occurred. That might be of interest. And just comment on it, say it's untrue or whatsoever, or it's in part true, or whatever you want to say. But we really would urge you from the side of the court now not to admonish or try to admonish constantly Defense Counsel. So please answer the question, say this is put to you, that somebody has made this complaint, and you can say something about this complaint.
We are back in open session.
Mr. Witness, this morning you talked very extensively about human intelligence. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you ever have occasion to talk to people who might have information about the war in northern Uganda?
Ana winyo look.
I get information through radio calls of LRA. My job was to do intercepts. My job was not to get information from civilians, because I myself was the source of information and I knew all that was happening. I didn't have time to get information from civilians.
Did you ever interview LRA returnees?
Mono beru katime onu dong pot.
That happened at the time when the LRA had already left Uganda and gone to Central African Republic. But when the returnees came back, yes, we would actually ask them about the conditions. It was not a very important interview, because those who came back from those who returned from the returnees from Central African Republic would just give us information which wasn't first-hand information, but the real information, the first source information would have been already received through the radio signalers in CAR.
Mr. Witness, before and after Iron Fist, especially between 2002 and 2005, did you ever, rather, let me put it this way. Did any LRA former abductee escape and come back and report to your office or any intelligence office that you know of?
Tiene LRA.
I can say that any abductee who reports back home, first of all, they are handed over to the division intelligence officer, because he's the overall head of intelligence in the division. So once the abductees have been received by the division intelligence officer, he may inform me that he has received some abductees, especially if these abductees were commanders. Then he would request me to talk with them, and he hoping that I could get new terms from these abductees and get new tonfas. So I would go with him in his car, and then note the records of the interview, which I later give to the superiors. So yes, I would carry out a kind of interview with them, and then I go back to the barracks and make a report to the division intelligence officer.
Yes. Mr. Witness, I want to refer you to Defense Tab 3. ERN number UGA OTP 0027 0214 at 0224. Paragraph 67. Allow me to read it aloud, Your Honors. It reads, paragraph 67, I do not have the former LRA Chief of Signals helping me in my work. When rebels leave the bush, we interrogate them for intelligence purposes. We even put on civilian clothes in order to do that. Normally, this is done in the counterintelligence office here in the division. I was involved in the interview of the signals officer who came out of the bush. And remember that this statement of yours was signed on the 11th of December 2004. Do you remember that statement?
I don't see anything wrong there. What else? Why should I, be afraid? There is nothing wrong there. Because I said clearly that when the LRA commanders or signalers return, I am authorized to go and speak to them, not just any other soldier. For example, Brigadier Odong, whom you heard about yesterday, was arrested during a field operation when the UPDF had shot him on the leg. So when he was brought by the UPDF helicopter to the 4th Division headquarters, the division commander, by then Colonel Nathan Mogisha, called me to come in a haste and told me there is some job to do. We have captured somebody and we want you to go and interview him. Remember, this person is a brigadier. So my commander called me to go and interview him because he knows that I understand most of the terms that the LRA use. So when I went to Odong Brigadier, I started talking to him in the style, in the language that they use in the bush. So to his surprise, he actually even thought I was one of them. So when I speak to them in their term that they use in the bush, they actually wonder who actually I am. So they actually become excited to even and begin revealing much more secret to me. So I remember that on that day, I spoke to Odong while he was still at the Gulu Military Hospital, and they had given me information that we have captured this person and Kony is not yet aware of that. So they told me to go and speak to him using my radio call, and I picked my radio call, went to him, to Odong, who was admitted in the hospital at that time. So we went with the division commander, and by then, Betty Bigombe. So we put the radio close or next to the sick brigadier. So when I set the radio call, I gave him to speak, and I gave him instruction, and I told him, use your term and talk to Kony, and use your term that you use in the bush, that I will kill you. I'll kill you. But don't tell him that the UPDF has captured you. So when I gave him that instruction, Odong started communicating using my radio call. And I even believe that at that time, even Dominic was hearing that. So when Kony heard Odong was saying, Layom Chwin, Akanere, Kony was really happy. Because I told Odong that if Kony asks you, whose radio are you using? You tell Kony that you have been handed over to Red Cross, and Red Cross is the one treating you, and they have given me this radio to use, so that Kony may not know that you are in the barracks. So I gave this long example so that you may know what is going on. So most of this time we were communicating, and yet at that time when Odong was with us in the barracks, so we were getting information, every information that the LRA was sending, and they are not known that Odong had been captured. But they realized much later that Odong was captured, and then they actually cut communication with him. In another incident, Oti Vincent called Brigadier Odong, and remember, he's already a prisoner of war who was under our custody. So when Oti called Odong Aka Neke, Oti asked him, where are you? And Odong said, I'm already here. These people have already captured me. They were actually speaking in their terms. So while they were speaking, the division IO had a small phone which was recording. And so while Odong was communicating, the division intelligence officer was recording. And when he called me, he asked me to listen, that first listen to this communication. So he told me that I want you to listen to this communication because I gave this radio and he was communicating. So when I was given that phone with that recording, I went back to my office. I picked a tape and a recorder. I started transferring the recording using memory card into a tape. I played it, listened to it, and transcribed it. So when I wrote, the whole report came about 3 pages, and I took back the report to Division IO and explained to him what these people were talking about. So
this answers the question of Mr. Ayena. Thank you very much. And Mr. Ayena, please continue with your question.
Sorry. So you used this kind of information, such as the one you got from Odong, for purposes of intelligence reporting.
Mono atio.
that I used under technical intelligence, because I told you that technical intelligence, we use what we get from radio call. So the division intelligence officer was not able to do that. That's why he forwarded it to me, and I worked on it. For him, he is a person from human intelligence. It does not handle technical intelligence bit. So that's why he brought to me as a technical intelligence officer. I wanted to say a lot more, but I was cut short. So briefly, that is what I said.
You got Brigadier Odongo. He was a human being. Is that right?
Brigadier Odong was an LRA commander who was shot by the UPDF in the field and was taken to 4th Division to get treatment. So after the treatment, he was given amnesty commission, and now he has returned home, and even up to now, the UPDF is still supporting him. I have nothing to respond there because if I told you that he was arrested while he was alive, that means he was not a bird. He was a human being who was living and was alive. But if it was a monkey, he would not be taken to the barracks.
Intelligence you got from him was human intelligence.
Human intelligence brought a report to technical intelligence. Please get this right.
Very well. So that is one example you gave. But in the line that I read to you, you said, when rebels leave the bush, we interrogate them for intelligence purposes. So my question is, when you interrogate them for intelligence purposes, where do you give the report you get from them?
I think you don't have questions to ask. You are repeating these questions. I told you that when I go and interview them, I bring the report to Division IO only. First of all, the information is not important because by the time these people come from the bush, the CMI staff who are in the field will have already collected first-hand information from them. So by the time they are brought from Garamba or Central Africa to Uganda, it's like after 1 month, and the information is no longer very important to the army. So it is only recorded for purpose of record because the IO will say, ask these people who is the commander, how many units are there, who is dead. So it's not now very important, but the most important is that my people who are in the field will have already received this information. So whatever information that we get from the CPU is now not important to us as technical intelligence.
I think, Mr. Witness, you've given me as much as I would want you to give. But can I ask you another question? Were you aware of other sources of human intelligence within the UPDF? Of course, you have already, I think I should not bother you with that because you said within the army there are so many others, such as the counterintelligence, human intelligence, NGOs, even individuals who had, radios. They had the capacity to intercept. So would I therefore, Mr. Witness, be right to say that sources of the final intelligence report was premised on multifarious reports from many sources, including, of course, your highly celebrated intercept reports?
Your Honors, I request to go to a private session. I will respond to that in private.
I think there is nothing to object to that. We go to private session.
We are now in open session.
Oh, sorry. All these different sources of intelligence, where do they end?
The overall head of the army in Uganda is the Chief of Defense Forces. And I also think you know him. The Chief of Defense Forces it therefore means that he has different branches. He has other chiefs that he is responsible for. So all this information that should have still continued in private, he should have asked me while we were still in private.
This is really, Mr. Witness, this is not an information that has to be given in private sessions. So you don't have to worry about anything in that respect. Please, Mr. Ayena.
Whoever finally receives this, does he make some kind of final report arising from these different reports?
Your Honors, I beg for your forgiveness because I am in active service, because any information that might come out when I go back to it might bring me problems. So there are certain things I need to be careful, because I don't need to be forced that it has to be open, because if there are things that come out in the open, it will bring me problems when I go back.